name is John Linquist. I'm with JetBrains. We make tools like IntelliJ and PHP Storm, Resharper, WebStorm, those sorts of tools. And I believe that every piece of software and every company has its story, and it's very valuable to share each other's stories to learn from each other. So I'd like to share our story. In the beginning, way back before iPads and iPhones and iPods, way back when the world started in the year 2000, we had what people call these days a minimum viable product, is kind of the buzzword for this, and we decided to ship it. Basically what it was a product that would allow you to rename classes. It was a Java tool to rename things, extract methods, and do really basic refactoring. It was a plugin for a product called JBuilder, and there were just 3 guys working on it, and there was a very tiny initial investment. And it was actually really beautiful. It had a nice red and gold scheme to it with these ugly 3 panels. But that's what software looked like back in the day. One of the first things that happened for us, which was great, was that Martin Fowler, who literally wrote the book on refactoring, mentioned us on his website and said that refactoring tools are really starting to come along. And so we decided to push hard to moving from being a plugin to being an IDE on our own, which ironically we said, well, let's not take the time to allow plugins yet. We need to ship fast. So we thought we could save a few months of development and ship an IDE. That started going pretty well, so we started hiring our first other developers. So we started moving from 3 to 4 to 5. We started adding some more features that you'll see even today, things like formatting code, live templates, and we released version 2.0. Now, very early on, and there's always been a long battle, you can search the internet for all sorts of IDE wars, and I really recommend if you're developing your own software products, just embrace the competition, because you're going to have a lot of competition. We have a lot of competition. In 2001 is when everyone started getting organized. The Eclipse Foundation and NetBeans was already 1.0, and many other IDEs. And one of the challenges we had and we always have is competing with open source and competing with free. And you'll see that a lot these days in app stores and other places, is that there's always a free version of what you're trying to build and what you're trying to sell. And so what we found, which works best for us, is that if you keep on pushing the envelope and you keep on providing the customer support and the user experience that can only come with a paid staff, is that you can compete really well and have a really successful business based on great software. And we've been able to compete with open source for 14 years now, so it's worked out pretty well for us. Now, IntelliJ was kind of our original name. We had IntelliJ.com, and we decided, well, it's probably time to establish a different brand so we can have other products to put them under. So we weren't actually the JetBrains company until the year 2002, even though we'd been around for about 2.5 years by that time. And one of the great things about us early on is that we ambitiously failed at something, meaning we went really hard to achieve a great goal, and that was to build a set of web components and a web designer. It looked something like this, where you could drag around things and link up different nodes for web components and build websites. So it was called Fabrique. It was a rapid application development software, and it was too ambitious, and it failed really hard. But I'm not saying that is a bad thing, because what it allowed us to do is to take all the improvements we had to make to our own tools and reuse those and then ship those later. So there's always value in shooting for the stars, because if you make it to the moon, you've still made it to the moon at least, even if you didn't make it to the stars. So always shoot for those great goals, but also know when to cut your losses and take the advancements and move forward. So at this time, it was around 2003, it's time to expand the product line, so we moved into Resharper, we realized there was a big need for all the refactoring we could do in Java. We realized there's a big need for that in the C# world. So we started moving more people over there, completely separate code bases, which has always been a challenge, using the same ideas across different code bases. One of the favorite moments for us is in 2004 is the first time that we had contributors ship software inside of our own IDE. So if you've ever used an inspection or a quick fix or an intention inside of IntelliJ or any of our products. This is when our community delivered something to us. They loved our product enough to deliver something to us, and then we could ship it back out to everyone else. And that's really, if you've ever had that moment of working on either open source or your own software, and you've had the community work with you to help ship and make your project better, that's one of the best moments you can have. So from there on out, because of the competition and because of other things, it was time to just start packing in features. We figured, we have a bunch of great developers. We'll just start shipping as much stuff as we can, throwing as much stuff as we can. We had 10 people all working on IntelliJ at the same time. We were at 5.0 at this time. We released one version per year. And we were at 1 million lines of code. We added JavaScript support and Python support and a custom language API. And this is what really set us up for the future of for other IDEs. Now, at this time, we also realized that we had a core platform and then a kind of a user-facing enterprise level of our tools. And if you've been working on a project long enough, you probably realize you have an individual core platform to your project and then kind of an outward-facing thing. And so we separated our team into two separate teams, one working on a core platform and one working on the enterprise side of things. What this also allowed us to do was to refocus on the end user experience, meaning that we realized that it was getting so big, and this probably happens in your projects as well. Sometimes it'll get so big that your tool can get in the way of itself. So if we ship a large IDE like IntelliJ Ultimate and we hand it to a Ruby developer, they're like, well, I don't need all of this stuff. So what we decided to do is release a product called RubyMine. This was our first IDE with a subset of the features of IntelliJ Ultimate. And RubyMine was just the Ruby features and the Ruby debugger and the different Ruby refactorings, and it didn't have any of the Java stuff. So we realized, we have this great platform and we have this great set of tools, but that's just too much for some people. And I don't know if that's happened in your projects, but always stop to consider, am I giving them too much? Is there something that I can give them that's a little bit less that would actually meet their needs even better? Now, we also switched over to the open source model. So in 2009, we open sourced the platform part of our project, the platform part of IntelliJ. If you go to github.com/jetbrains, you can find all of our open source stuff. And we thought that this would have a big impact on sales. And what we realized is that we actually had an uptick in sales, even though this had all the features of the Java features, the Ant features, XML, and version control, and everything. The IntelliJ Ultimate stuff still got an uptick in features because we were able to add enough value through the different frameworks to create good sales. Now, on the flip side, we also thought, well, now that we've open sourced our commercial product, aren't people going to start giving back to us? Isn't that the way that open source works? You open source something and people fix your bugs for you, right? That's how open source works. That's not really the case. We've seen very little contributions as far as bug fixes or features to the core platform. And that's, it's unfair to expect your users, even if you open source your project, it's unfair to expect them to fix your stuff for you. And we never really thought that would happen, but it's proven over the years that they just don't have interest in fixing your things for you. So if you open source, don't expect that to happen. So we realized now that we had JavaScript support and Python support, now it's time to, again, take that idea with RubyMine, where we targeted Ruby audiences, and target the different JavaScript world, the PHP world, the Python world, and we have different IDEs like WebStorm and PHP Storm and PyCharm that are all targeting the different audiences and finding the little places where people could use the feature set that just targets their individual needs, and they don't need the full suite of your huge product if you have one. And the funny thing is from here, the biggest uptick in sales and the biggest boost in sales is whenever we kind of redesign and improve the look and feel of the tools. If we put in some great feature that's really challenging to build and is just really conceptually hard, and it boosts their workflow and saves them tons of time, that your diehard fans will really love that feature and they'll talk about it a lot. But the broad, the main users, your huge user base, they'll really see the value in just a pretty UI. And that's not to say that, you know, the main features are always what's going to drive the diehard users, and it seems like the first thing people notice is when they open your tool, they open your software, and they say, what does it look like? And they'll just compare, well, IntelliJ looks like this, Eclipse looks like that, NetBeans looks like that, and then they'll say, that's the first thing they judge things on, is what it looks like. So we've seen, as we redesign, we make it look better, sales go up. It's just a fact. So preparing for the future. Preparing for the future, in 2012, we realized that everything was moving to the web. And so what we've been able to do is take that core platform, which we open source, and we've been working on extracting what was in the core platform on the desktop and moving it over to a server to run in a headless environment to give that same sort of functionality to online tools. And if you're working on something similar dev tools, I recommend you look into this sort of strategy as well, because what it will enable us to do, and what we've been able to do this year, is provide some of those same tools online. And I'll get into that in just a second. But a big announcement for us was that in 2013, we were able to partner with Google in Android Studio. And we were able to do some cross-promotion and cross-marketing. Android Studio is basically a rebranded version of IntelliJ Community Edition, the open source part of our product. And we were able to get a lot of user feedback and a lot of people with more eyes on our products telling us what they want and what they like. And it's just been a great experience for us. Now, so 2014 and going forward, what you see on there now is a product called UpSource, which we'll be releasing this year. It's a code review tool. And this is basically IntelliJ and the other IDEs running online. And you can go to upsource.jetbrains.com and play around with it right now. And right now it's a code review tool. It has the features as far as navigating through code, clicking on things and jumping between code, finding usages, and going through different versions of your code and things like that. And we've been able to reuse our existing code base for that online experience. And so taking that forward, what we've seen is that now we're a company with over 400 people. We have over 14 products. You know, we have our product that we originally started with, which has matured, separated into other products, and then even moving to the web right now. What the thing we need to focus on now is, and you probably experienced this on your own, you need to reintegrate your products back into each other, where you have that single sign-on experience where you sign into one thing and your settings are saved across the different tools you're using. For example, we have TeamCity for build server stuff, we have UTrack for bug tracking, UpSources for the code review, and then your desktop tools. And everyone wants that to be a seamless experience. Everything needs to be a seamless experience these days. And so we're making a huge push this year and moving forward into reintegrating all of our tools together, which is funny because we started off with a small tool which broke into separate tools, and now it's time to bring them back into that same experience. And the other thing to note is that we've been able to take our expertise in building those smaller IDEs and then find old problems that people hadn't really looked to tackle, like building a C++ IDE, which we'll be releasing this year. Now, the summary of this and what I think we've learned from our successes and failures in the past is that it's so important to let your developers run with their crazy ideas and let them push the envelope. And then when you let them do that, you constantly look for that user feedback with developer tools. You constantly look for what can we improve based on the way that people are using it. And then you can reinvent yourself and redesign the UI and release different separate products and smaller products. And I believe that's been the key to our success over the years. So thanks for listening and have a good conference.